most relationships are structured in a somewhat of a traditional way. If there was a broken sprinkler the other day, my wife would never fix the sprinkler. It would just never happen. That has to fall on me. Like, I'm going to be the one to fix that sprinkler. My wife tends to do more of like the cleaning chores around the house. I help a lot. You know, I wash dishes, I wash clothes, things like that. But she does more of those things. I think the important thing is like finding a balance within a relationship that everybody's like happy with, and not being like feel like you're boxed into this societal role. I feel like as long as you're, you know, those two things, then you should be all right.
For our last topic, it's more of a reaction to a video that's on YouTube right now called The Fall of Man. It's from, the channel name is Big Think. And they're talking about how there's a lot of inequality in schools and stuff like that when it comes to male and female, or girl and boy, or girl, boy, man, woman, or others. And yeah, it's a whole expert explaining it, and it's definitely an eye-opener. I know we all have seen the video here. Doughboy's the one that found it, so Doughboy, give us a little bit of background on this.
Yeah, I watched the video a few times now, and I think it's interesting that in less than, you know, since when they speak about it respectively. In the beginning, he says, a lot of people told me not to make this because even in talking about it, it's kind of like a hot topic. You don't want to take away from the women's movement, women in, you know, because it still feels like they're breaking boundaries even to this day. But what he's saying is like writing about men and boys. It's a controversial topic, which I agree. I don't understand why it's so controversial to speak about men. I feel like it in itself threatens people. I don't know why, but I just see it like happening. So what he's saying in this video is in the last maybe 40 years, I think in the 70s, in the 60s, late 60s, we allowed women into colleges and women into, rightfully so, they got, you know what I mean? We've integrated them into schools, into colleges. And what we didn't expect is for them to zoom right past men. Like men were performing at a rate and women just outperformed men in scholastics and all sorts of ranges, and even in the workforce. And they're saying that that's for a lot of different reasons. And in the video lists a lot of the different reasons.
What are those reasons?
This expert, he talks about how men don't develop as early as women. So a lot of the times when boys are doing even the same schoolwork, or like we don't really think about our GPAs being important. We don't really feel like, and I kind of agreed because I didn't think about these things till late in the game. I even like they pushed me through grades even. I underperformed a lot in school, so I don't know. I also feel like some of the reasons he gave about boys should start a year later than girls, I thought that was interesting. Red shirting the boys, having them start school a year later than the girls so that they could develop, because boys aren't as mature as women just due to natural causes. We don't really like develop till like we're 14 or like start maturing, when girls hit puberty much younger at like 9, 10, 11. Boys aren't, sometimes it's like 16 years old. men are hitting puberty. So men aren't really maturing as fast as women, and that it isn't a problem, but they're saying we are coming to a point where now we have inequality, but just in the other direction. And men are we kind of need to help men out. But yeah, how do you guys feel about it? Because I've watched it tons of times.
I think like to answer like your very first question of like, why do people not talk about these things, or why is it like taboo? I think it feels weird when not that it's too soon, but when there's still like a lot of women still have a lot of issues, right? Like fair pay in the workplace, even the types of jobs that women get, leadership roles. Women tend to be nurses instead of surgeons or doctors, and
they
things
spoke
like that.
A lot about that too, like how there's less men.
I'm just saying there's a lot of those types of issues with women that they're still trying to overcome. And they're still the people in society that are disadvantaged. It feels weird to start like yelling about the people in the advantaged position about how they need help. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I had some quibbles with some of his stuff too, because like I agree with a lot of his concerns. I think that they're interesting things to track and keep in mind. Like I think it would be a shame if we started having a bunch of young men at a disadvantage as well. Like I think that that's obviously not the solution to any kind of like gender issues or anything. But I've got some quibbles with some of his stuff, because he talks about like how women outperform men academically in high school and things like that, or young women outperform young men, blah blah blah, right? And he's true. He's right. Like the vast majority of valedictorians are women. Like they're young ladies that are getting the valedictorian position, but it's still significantly less likely for them to get admitted into the same caliber of schools as men. So like, how much does that matter? He was talking about like the STEM and the HEAL thing, right? Like HEAL was the opposite side of STEM. That's like the healthcare, education, academics, that stuff like that. And he was talking about how it's primarily women. But as Pooch said, if he's just looking at raw percentages, it's a lot of like it's not equal comparisons he's making. He's talking about like orderlies and like he's just taking healthcare as a whole, rather than looking at like the upper levels where there's still the pay disparity, because it's a lot of male doctors and things of that nature. I think there's just some issues that I have with some of like the
what
the
about
statistics
the one
and
for
the things
school where he said there's not a lot of male teachers?
I think that's accurate. I think that's been the trend since like the 60s though. But what is your solution? What is the fix for that though? Because he doesn't actually recommend a solution for that. And I don't know what the solution for that is either, because there's obviously programs that exist, like the push for to get women into STEM. There are pushes like that. I've seen nursing programs that specifically like target men, and I don't know what the solution is.
I've seen it here. They put men on the posters now for nursing and stuff like that instead of putting women. I've seen that. But
my main frustration with the video was that, and I actually liked the video because it was informative in terms of like showcasing basically the trends of society, where we're headed, what potential problems we may face, things like that. I was a little frustrated that he said, oh, we're going to talk about the causes of the fall of men, but then he didn't actually talk about what caused any of it. He just talked about the situation itself. Well, there's not a lot of people in healthcare. There's not a lot of men in healthcare. There's not a lot of male educators. There's not a lot of males in the household. And there's not a lot of males going to school and graduate. Not a lot of and all these issues are going to compound into men just performing worse in society. He never got to why any of that was the case or how we should solve any of it. Like Mateo said,
maybe he doesn't have the answers.
And some of that I had issues with, because he had that whole spiel where he talked about how due to women no longer having to stay married to men, or no longer feeling trapped because they can, earn their own income and things like that, which he did say was a good thing, because obviously, it is a good thing that women are not forced to be in marriages anymore. But he talked about how 1 in 4 of them would not see their kids again, or just something like that. He was giving the statistics. I watched it once. I didn't like recognize it a lot. But then he started talking about like suicide in men and how the rates are higher and blah blah blah. But there's a lot of factors to that, right? Men are also more likely to be gun owners, and gun owners are more likely to commit suicide. And there's a lot of other factors than this guy committed suicide because his kid was no longer with him. Like.
No, but I don't think they had anything to do with having your kids around. Maybe he did say that.
Yeah, he introduced it in the same section, so it felt related. If that wasn't his intent, he should have organized the video a little differently. But that's the way it came off.
You could look at suicide around the world, where gun owners are not present, and it's still men that kill themselves more than women. And I thought what he said about men feeling useless and men feeling unworthy, I think that's like a huge, I've had to grasp with, am I useful? Who am I useful to? What is my place as a man? Like questioning my identity, because what it is to be a man and what it is to be, it's like warped now. It's not really, we don't really have the same place or that our grandparents did, or even that our fathers had.
Thank God we don't, though. You know what? The old timey times, they fucking sucked, dude. And there's my confetti blast.
Yeah, but that's like virtue signaling. Like, that's, of course, like nobody has to.
No, I'm not even talking about the treatment of other people. I'm talking about in general, like this. The reason why the things were broken down so much is because household chores took so damn long to do. Washing clothes took longer. This is why there was that breakdown between.
Why is talking about it so controversial? Why does just talking about where do men belong spark that rage in you to go the other way? I had
rage.
No. The spark, whatever you call that, like to go the other way. Is weird that when men even just talk about being men, it's like, you should feel that way, because then it's like, all right, well that doesn't really solve our question.
I didn't say you should feel useless. I just think that the idea of a man is changing. We've had this conversation. We had this conversation about what makes a man, and it is changing because you're not seeing these breadwinner symbiotic type relationships as much anymore, because the times are changing, and that's fine. That's good. That's the progress that we want.
But men don't.
My question is, why does your entire identity have to do with whether you're able to provide for someone else or not? Why does your entire
been men's role? Even in look at history.
It's never been my role in my life, and I don't try to hold myself to historical standards.
It's instinctual. Like there's things further that are encoded in us. I don't think that there's levels to things.
Yeah, I don't know if it's encoded.
Yeah, no, I think we have instincts as men and women. So, women reproduce. Women have a want to reproduce, and men have a want. It's like, but that's weird to not see it like that. You don't think so? Like, just science tells you those things.
I think you're looking at
history tells you those things. Absolutely.
You're looking at it like an oldies
We're mammals. Like, we are mammals. We want to reproduce. That's our thing. Right? Like, science will tell you certain things. Like, there's not like,
there's biological imperatives from like a species perspective and things like that. Yeah. But I think that like one of the ideas that I always heard about what separates us from animals is our ability to not succumb to all our animalistic instincts at all times. Like,
sometimes we can't do that though. As humans, we've seen people not be able to do that.
I don't know. I haven't read anything about like it's encoded into men to want to be protectors. I feel like that's more of
cultural
a nurtured thing. Like, society tells us we need to be that way. That's why we're that way.
Well, society is changing. What society tells us we should. So if you grow up feeling one type of way, and then society changes, and then like if you have a hard time grasping,
real quick.
Yeah.
So because I kind of agree with you. Like Mateo's saying that he's never felt that he needs to be the breadwinner, right? And or anything like that. That's cool. As a society, though, men are raised and told, and even that's even perpetuated in dating. There's a lot of women that expect men to maybe not be the sole breadwinner, but to be the person making more money. Like, and maybe that's just the cultures I grew up around and things like that. But there's I've spoken to plenty of women that'll be like that they would lose interest in a man, or they would look at a man less if he didn't make a certain amount of dollars, if he didn't make a certain amount more than she made, or something like that. I feel like those are still like a mindset that's like stuck in the past, you know? And I feel like it's a combination of women weren't allowed to work, 50 years ago or 60, 70 years ago, whatever. And they didn't make money. So like having a man that made money was a thing that was required. Like, a woman would try to find a guy who was nice and, tick off all the boxes of somebody you want to be with. And one of those boxes had to be they got their career in order, they got their income in order or something, because they have to be the breadwinner. And I think as society has shifted towards women being capable of making money, some of those ideas that we had, it's changing slower than other parts of our society. And I feel like we're kind of in like this middle stage where, like, because I'm with you, I never felt that I had to be the breadwinner, but I grew up around that where, like, my dad was the breadwinner. My mom didn't work for a long period of time. And I know plenty of people that grew up like that.
Same. And useful was the
and I grew up around those same type of relationships. I spent a lot of time as a child, as a teenager, like thinking about a lot of these relationships though. And I saw a lot of unhappiness in the relationships around me that were built around this expectation that all the guy has to do is work, and then he comes home and everything else is taken care of. There's nothing else in his life that he has to deal with. And I even as a child and as a teenager, I saw issues with this. My dad is borderline useless when it comes to a lot of things. He does not know. If I were to ask him how you pay your bills every month, he has no idea. He doesn't take care of these things. So I never saw it as a virtue to be that kind of person, that your sole responsibility was just to provide money and you had no other use in the household.
Yeah, well, if I talk about my grandfather, like, yeah, he was very much like that, but he was very useful in certain ways. Like my grandmother wouldn't have been able to build a house for herself, for them and the children. And
yeah,
I
think Mateo agrees with you. Mateo was saying in certain ways his dad was used to, such as paying bills. Or
yeah, but my grandfather wouldn't even go to the store to get my grandma like her stuff. She had to go get her stuff.
Same with my dad. My dad did not do grocery trips. That's the point that I'm making, is that I saw these relationships and I saw dysfunction in things like that. So I chose to not have that be part of what I would use to define myself as a man or as a person in general. Like that wasn't the way I wanted to go.
My parents thought I was crazy when they came. My parents were here for a little while when my son was recently born. They thought I was crazy when I was changing diapers. They were like, "Oh shit, you changing diapers?" I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of a dad, like I'm a parent here." Mm-hmm. And sorry, I had a cough and I muted. It's that mentality of like the men don't do certain things because you're a breadwinner. Like, you have your duties, and my relationship is. Most relationships are structured in somewhat of a traditional way. It's just the amount of traditional things that we do has a lesson. Like if there's any, like, my wife, there was a broken sprinkler the other day. My wife would never fix the sprinkler. It would just never happen. Mm-hmm. That has to fall on me. Like I'm going to be the one to fix that sprinkler. My wife tends to do more of like the cleaning chores around the house. I help a lot, I wash dishes, I wash clothes, things like that, but she does more of those things. I think the important thing is like finding a balance within a relationship that everybody's like happy with. Mm-hmm. And not being like feel like you're boxed into this societal role. I feel like as long as you're, those two things, then you should be all right. But I think there are still some traditional things that a lot of modern relationships still fall into just because, I don't know, maybe we're encoded that way, or maybe it's just because of society, right? I think it's just a society. I think girls grow up from a young age being told you need to learn how to clean, you need to learn how to cook, you need to learn, and boys grow up useless in those regards. Oftentimes they don't know how to do these things, and a lot of women do. And then when you get into a relationship, it just kind of naturally plays out that that's what those people do. But I don't necessarily think it's because genetically humans were predisposed for women in particular to be like the chefs of the house or whatever.
Not in like that. I'm saying like mammals, we reproduce. It's what we do, just like every other mammal on Earth. Just like our goal.
You took it a step further
goal.
than that, though, right? You were like, women want to have babies and raise babies.
That's
and men
like
want to
literally the thing you can
and-
do if you like. No other human is coming out is a woman doesn't say she wants to reproduce. So it's kind of like on woman to reproduce. Yeah,
it's kind of a weak argument though, right? Because if we were to just say that this is just the base instinct, so this is what we should do, blah blah blah.
I think it's instinctual. I think we want to do these things. I don't think we have to say to do them or not.
Yeah, but if it were pure instinctual like that, how many mammals have like committed long-term relationships or monogamy as part?
That's what makes us different.
Thing
is that we have free will.
I think what makes us different is that we can overcome the instincts. I think that societal pressure is much more of a factor than whatever baseline instincts we have. As Pooch was saying, like societal pressure is what changes things ultimately.
We're all gonna like have sex eventually, right? That's like
of course. But like I was with my wife for 11 years.
No, I'm saying, but before you had an urge to have sex. That's just an instinctual thing. It's not like anybody had to tell you that. I'm just saying.
There are certainly things that are instinctual for sure. I'm just saying it sounded like you were going down the path of saying that like certain gender norms are encoded into us as a human being. And I'm saying I don't know how true that is. Like there's societies where situations were opposite, where women did certain things and men didn't. Women were like, men were doing some other stuff like that maybe was seen as more difficult, and women were tasked with like defending an area or things like that. Like I don't know I'm just saying like those things just feel like societal norms. Like different groups of people come up with different rules for how their little place should be run, and people just sort of conform to that.
I agree with a little bit of all of you guys. Like, and what I mean by that, like, I agree that it's great that the progress we are now, that women are advancing, but it's also kind of crazy that they're advancing to a point where men are on the bottom half of the scale, I guess. In the video, he does go by saying like 60% of men are just failing in the educational system, that maybe having more man teachers or whatever would help with that, or starting, even if you start the boys off a year later, their levels of with their peers with the girls will probably be the same. And to say that, and the reason why this is controversy though, because you did say that earlier, and I know you guys just went on a long talk, but to go back to that point, it's because that women were pressed or oppressed for so long that, you're just a housewife. This was like the old thought. You're a housewife, you cook, you clean, you feed the kids, you do the laundry, do that, while we go work, and we come home and stuff better be ready, the food, clothes, all this stuff. To now, where we talk about it, like, oh, men need help, it's like, get out of here. Where's this love for when we were, as a woman, struggling to come up and try to get good jobs and all this? All we had to do was be a housewife and be forced to marry someone because of money. And I think that's why it might set, because any wrong way of twisting the words, like in the video, he did a good job. by explaining.
I think he did a great job. Yeah.
So it didn't come off as a sexist way or just like, look at us men, we're struggling while the women are succeeding. He didn't come off like that. He was just saying simple facts that, you know.
No, in every way. He said, and rightfully so. He was always saying, like, the women's had, and all of these things we're not arguing against.
Every time he
You know what I
said
mean?
something that could be misconstrued as sexist, like, yeah, ever since the women started working in the workplace, men's lives have gone to shit. You know, and then you're like, are you making a sexist remark there, buddy? Like, and he's like, no, it's great that women went to work. They should have went to work. It's a beautiful thing. But, you know, I think he did. I think he did a good job of showing up, displaying a problem. Everybody has problems, right? And there's still issues that women deal with. There's issues that men deal with. I do see a lot of people on like more like the liberal side that they don't want to talk about men's issues. Like in their minds, men still have it so good that there's no point in trying to address men's issues.
Yeah, I think that's an issue.
I disagree
personally,
with the
yeah.
sentiment,
But I think a lot of people feel that way. It's like, why are we even speaking about helping men when women still need to be pushed through, which I'm not stopping them from. I'm not saying that we shouldn't continue to push women forward, but why leave the men behind? And what good does that do, everyone?
I mean, there's definitely some failing in young men. That's why things like Fresh and Fit and Andrew Tate and shit like that is so appealing to a lot of these lost young men that are feeling, as you said, useless and worthless and things like that. But a lot of it, I don't know what the solution is, because a lot of it is just the society has changed, culture is changing. You're like, I don't know what the solution is to get them on the right side of that or to help change their thinking, but I know that there is definitely a problem, and I think it needs to be talked about.
Yeah, more awareness, sure.
Yeah, it's sad that a lot of boys are still raised with the mentality of like, dude, just got to go to school, get a job, you'll get the girl, and then it's like all these dudes are bringing to the table is money.
Yeah.
And when you're bringing it to the table with somebody who now also has money, you don't look so appealing anymore. Like you're not bringing much. It's like, nah.
It also was like every story we've ever been told since childhood through Disney, through whatever it was, is like that was the story of patriarchy, and like that's literally like the shit we were fed. Oh, you know what I mean? You're gonna get the girl, and you know what I mean? All these rom-coms, they fucking, you're at the end of the day, you harass her enough, you're gonna get her.
Yeah, that's wild too.
If you ever watch like the Nick Cannon movie, what was it, the Nick Cannon classic? What is it? I forgot. He
Love
just
Don't
harassed.
Cost
Don't cost a thing.
I don't know.
I don't think that one he did some OD thing. He changed his whole personality, created this entire persona just to get with the chick.
Yeah.
And at the end, he went back to being the nerd that he was, but he got the girl, you know?
But even in like the Winslows and shit like that, like the nerd didn't cut it. He had to be the Chad version of himself. To like get the girl.
Yeah, Steve Urkel wasn't
like
getting
Urkel.
nothing. But Stefan, ooh, you know, Stefan used to walk into the room and the soundboard went, ooh, like everyone needed to know Stefan was hot. Okay. I personally like the Kung Fu Steve Urkel. I don't even remember. It might have been Stefan in like a karate gear or something. But every now and again, you'd get like Kung Fu Steve Urkel. He'd be kicking ass.
Yeah,
That show took too many wrong turns. They went off the rails.
I do feel like more conversations like this do need to take place and bring awareness. Equally elevate both parties.
For sure.
Because, you know, guys take a lot of things in. Like, most guys are not, they don't express their feelings. They don't, you know, don't cry this, don't cry that.
There's also a level of intelligence that, you know what I mean? Like, men aren't as intelligent as women sometimes. And there's even like a level of intelligence speaking. Sometimes these Andrew Tates, they speak to that level of intelligence and shit like that. The fresh and the fits. They'll put enough beautiful women in front of you. You'll forget even while you're tuning in. You're like, oh, look at these beautiful women. It's just, they play to the immaturity of men. So men can be very immature.
Yeah, for sure. But, ladies and gentlemen, you stuck with us through this entirety of this episode. Hit that subscribe button.
They don't. They stop. They drop off in about 5 minutes or so. I've been looking at the analytics.
Hit the subscribe button for those who do watch.
We're doing this for the Beaumonts, for the Tedleys.
Facts. For the Tedleys of the world. And
for the connoisseurs.
For the
People that
Tanyas.
tune in.
Does our boy Broshi still watch, or does he just watch on our shorts?
He is an avid, he likes all of our stuff on Instagram. He still watches. Like, yeah, shout out to Broshi, bro.
He's the original fan. He's the OG fan.
The OG fan.
The OG fan. Shout out. Here's some claps for all you OG fans.
Shout out to you guys. To the new fans, to the new 500s, to the old. Remember when you guys were just sluts to us? Now you're worth more. You've leveled up.
Leveled up.
Okay.
All right. Well, as always, people, go one up yourself. Peace.
Peace.